The end of 2023 here, Wolfgang, he played the House of Blues out here, and I went to the show.
The moment the question was asked, Michael Anthony's composure broke. It was one of those rare instances where a lifetime of experience, fame...
That was Michael Anthony, okay? 100% dedicated, never did anything to hurt those guys, and they tried to hurt him again and again.
And performance collided with raw, unfiltered emotion. In public, he had always been seen as calm, confident, and in control. The rock on stage, the dependable presence in interviews, the voice behind some of the world's most legendary rock anthems. But here, under the bright lights and the unrelenting gaze of cameras, he was human. His eyes glistened, his voice trembled, and for a brief moment, the music faded, replaced by silence that felt heavier than any stadium ever could. It wasn't about the accolades, the tours, or the records that carried his name. It was about something far deeper, a memory, a loss, a truth that had been carried quietly for decades. Michael's story is more than the sum of his famous performances. Behind the bass guitar and the stage lights lies a man who has lived through the dizzying highs of stardom and the isolating lows that often come with it. He had shared stages with legends, witnessed history being made, and yet, like so many artists, his personal life held its own private battles. When asked that one question, the question that touched a nerve he had carefully shielded, years of restraint fell away. His hand shook slightly over the microphone, and a pause stretched longer than anyone expected. It was a pause filled with memory, with reflection, with the weight of decades of love, loss, and perseverance. That moment, captured on camera, revealed something no stage performance ever could. Michael Anthony, in all his humanity, struggling with the things that fame can't protect you from. The question itself seemed simple, almost innocuous, but it touched something elemental in him. For Michael, it wasn't the inquiry itself that caused tears to well up. It was a reminder of what had been lost, what could never be regained, and the lives that had shaped him into the man he became. He thought of family, of friends who had passed, of moments in the past that were now only memories. He thought of dreams deferred, mistakes made, and choices that carried consequences he would live with forever. And in that instant, the rock star persona, the persona so familiar to millions, dissolved, leaving only a man confronting the enormity of his own feelings. In interviews over the years, Michael Anthony had always been candid, yet carefully measured. He understood the weight of words, the way they could be twisted, celebrated, or vilified. But here, the vulnerability was impossible to mask. The question bypassed offenses, bypassed rehearsed answers, and went straight to the heart. Those watching saw the human side of a music icon, a man who had achieved fame but never escaped the reality of emotion, a man whose greatest moments of triumph existed alongside private struggles invisible to the world. Every viewer could sense it, that instant when the veneer cracked, revealing the fragile, complicated soul beneath. He spoke eventually, his voice low and deliberate, each word heavy with emotion. He shared memories that were seldom recounted, reflecting on the people and experiences that had shaped him. He described hardships that fame could never soften, and joys that time had made bittersweet. The tears were not weakness. They were honesty, a testament to a life lived fully, intensely, and sometimes painfully. Those few minutes of candid confession became a lesson in empathy, a reminder that even icons are human, carrying the weight of their stories just like anyone else today as the cameras rolled. The world witnessed something extraordinary. It wasn't a planned reveal or a manufactured moment for attention. It was real. It was raw. Michael Anthony had shown that beneath the rock star exterior, beneath the bass lines and sold-out arenas, lies a man capable of immense feeling, of grief and love, of memory and loss. That vulnerability, fleeting as it was, became an indelible part of his legacy. It reminded fans and strangers alike that fame and talent do not shield anyone from the truths of life, that even those who seem larger than life carry the same weight, the same heartbreak, and the same capacity to be moved to tears that eye in the end. Michael Anthony's reaction became more than just a moment of emotional honesty. It became a reflection on the human experience itself, on fame, on resilience, on memory, and on the quiet, often unseen struggles that accompany a life in the spotlight. It reminded the world that even icons are stories that cannot be measured in hits, albums, or tours. Sometimes, a single question can cut through decades of fame and success, revealing the heart behind the music, the man behind the persona. And when that happens, the impact is universal. Fans, viewers, and fellow musicians alike are reminded that emotion transcends fame, that humanity exists even in legends, and that every tear tells a story worth hearing. Even after the tears began to subside, Michael Anthony's vulnerability lingered in the air. It was a moment that reminded everyone watching that fame and talent do not insulate someone from life's hardest truths. The cameras caught him inhaling slowly, trying to regain composure, but the weight of decades of experience, joy, and loss still pressed down. He spoke in a hushed, almost confessional tone, recounting stories from his earliest days as a musician. He remembered the hours spent practicing, the endless tours, the nights when the roar of the crowd faded and all that remained was silence, silence filled with longing, fear, and hope. Those were the moments that had shaped him, the moments that now seemed intertwined with the very question that had brought him to tears that he reflected on the sacrifices that fame demands. Michael Anthony had lived a life that many dream of, sold out arenas, platinum records, and collaborations with legendary artists. Yet he admitted that such success comes at a cost. Time with family, quiet moments of personal joy, and the simplicity of ordinary life are often the first casualties. He spoke candidly about relationships strained by travel schedules, friendships stretched thin by distance, and the constant pressure to perform, create, and remain relevant. The tears were not just for a single question. They were for the countless untold stories that come with a life devoted to music. They were for moments lost and memories that could never be reclaimed, but he also reflected on the deep bond with his fellow band members, the brothers in arms who shared the stage, the studio, and the road. Michael spoke of the camaraderie that had carried him through the toughest times, the support that sometimes felt like the only thing keeping him grounded amidst chaos. Yet even among friends, there are limits to what can be shared, and some burdens are carried alone. The question that caused him to tear up pierced through those defenses, reaching a part of him that had been hidden from fans, from cameras, and sometimes even from himself. As he continued, the emotion shifted subtly. There was sadness, yes, but also a quiet gratitude. He spoke of lessons learned through hardships, the resilience required to keep going, the humility learned from mistakes, and the beauty of fleeting moments that make life meaningful. Each tear became a reminder that life is not measured only in success or recognition, but in vulnerability, honesty, and the courage to confront one's emotions. It was a lesson not just for fans, but for anyone who has faced a tension between public expectation and private reality. Michael Anthony's story in this moment also highlighted the power of memory. He spoke of mentors, influences, and moments of inspiration that had shaped his journey. He recalled pivotal concerts, collaborations, and personal interactions that stayed with him long after the applause ended. These memories, both joyful and painful, were the threads of a life fully lived. And when faced with that simple yet profound question, those threads tangled together, creating a surge of emotion that could no longer be contained. The audience watching could feel the weight of the moment. Social media erupted with clips of his reaction, fans sharing their admiration and empathy. It wasn't just about witnessing a rock icon cry. It was about witnessing a human truth, that even legends of hearts that break, moments of doubt, and emotions that cannot be scripted. Michael Anthony's tears became a bridge between him and his audience, a reminder that empathy is universal, and that emotion transcends status, fame, and expectation. As the interview continued, he regained his composure, but the honesty remained. He reflected on hope and perseverance, speaking about the importance of holding on to passion even when life feels heavy. He encouraged listeners to embrace their own emotions, to honor both joy and sorrow, and to recognize that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. In that sense, the tears were transformative. They became a teaching moment, an invitation for viewers to connect with their own humanity. In conclusion, Michael Anthony's instant tearful reaction was more than a fleeting moment of vulnerability. It was a window into the life of a man who has seen the pinnacle of fame, endured personal struggles, and remained profoundly human throughout it all. It was a reminder that behind every legend is a story of resilience, love, loss, and growth. That singular moment, captured on camera, will resonate for years, a testament to the universal truth that no matter how famous or accomplished, every human carries emotion, memory, and the capacity to be moved to tears by life's simplest, yet most profound, questions. Even after the cameras stopped rolling, Michael Anthony's thoughts lingered on the question that had struck so deeply. He admitted privately that sometimes fame masks the personal pain that accumulates quietly over a lifetime. In interviews, concerts, and public appearances, he had always been the consummate professional, steady, reliable, full of charisma and energy. But there are moments when the public persona is no longer enough, when the heart insists on being seen, and the soul demands acknowledgement. That single question peers through years of discipline and composure, revealing the man behind the bass guitar. In that instant, the layers of celebrity peeled away, exposing the vulnerability, the memories, and the truths he had long carried quietly that he reflected on the price of ambition. Success, he said, often comes with invisible costs, personal sacrifices that the audience never witnesses. Hours spent in studios, nights on the road, missed family gatherings, and the relentless pressure to perform all take their toll. Michael spoke about the struggle to maintain balance, to honor commitments both to his craft and to the people he loved. The tears weren't just for a fleeting memory. They were for the countless moments lost to time, the things that no amount of fame could restore. It was a quiet sorrow of a life lived fully but not without personal compromise. Michael Anthony also recounted the importance of relationships forged over decades. The friendships, collaborations, and mentorships that shaped him were central to his journey. Yet he admitted that even the closest bonds can't shield one from emotion, grief, or reflection. When the question landed, it triggered memories of mentors who had passed, of bandmates no longer on the road, of moments that would never return. It reminded him that even amidst applause and recognition, life continues in the quiet spaces filled with longing, reflection, and sometimes regret. Those spaces are where vulnerability lives, and where tears like his can surface unexpectedly. He then spoke about resilience, the way the human spirit endures through challenge, loss, and emotional confrontation. Michael shared that life in the spotlight can obscure the lessons learned in hardship. The public sees the victories, the performances, the shining moments, but not the nights of doubt, anxiety, or sorrow. His tears, captured for the world to see, were not weakness. They were proof of resilience, proof that a life fully lived carries weight and meaning. Each tear was a reminder that emotional honesty is not a limitation, but a strength that connects us to one another, no matter our fame or status. The impact of that single moment extended far beyond the interview itself. Fans and fellow musicians saw a side of Michael Anthony rarely witnessed, the human side. Social media erupted, sharing clips, reflections, and admiration. But more than viral content, the moment became a shared human experience. Viewers connected not because of the fame, but because they recognized the vulnerability, the honesty, and the courage to show emotion publicly. In a world often obsessed with perfection, imperfection became a source of power, teaching a lesson about authenticity that transcends celebrity. He also reflected on the power of memory and nostalgia. The question that had brought him to tears reminded him of the people, places, and experiences that shaped his life. It was a reminder that identity is formed not just by accomplishments, but by relationships, losses, and the emotional echoes of the past. He thought of mentors who had guided him, friends who had inspired him, and moments of profound connection on and off stage. Each memory carried joy and pain, laughter and longing, and the tears were the natural expression of that accumulated life experience. Finally, Michael Anthony emphasized hope and perseverance. Even amidst emotional upheaval, there's a path forward. He spoke of embracing vulnerability as a source of strength, of using reflection to grow, and of remaining present in both joy and sorrow. His confession became more than just a moment of tears. It became a lesson for all viewers, a meditation on the human experience, the weight of memory, and the power of honesty. In revealing his emotion, he reminded us that every person, no matter how accomplished or celebrated, carries a story with understanding, a heart capable of feeling deeply, and a life rich with lessons that extend beyond fame. That single, tearful moment will resonate for years to come. It is a testament not only to Michael Anthony's humanity, but also to the universal truth that even those who seem larger than life are subject to the same emotional currents as everyone else. It reminds us that vulnerability is not weakness, that tears are not failure, and that the courage to confront one's emotions is one of the greatest acts of strength a person can show. In watching him, we are reminded that every individual, behind every persona and performance, carries a heart, a history, and a humanity that deserves empathy, reflection, and respect even as the tears slowly receded. Michael Anthony remained quiet for a long moment, staring into the distance as though he were tracing invisible memories. He spoke afterward about how the question touched a part of him he rarely allowed anyone to see. Fame often demands a kind of armor, a steady gaze, a confident smile, a controlled voice, but emotion cannot be contained indefinitely. In that split second, the armor fell away, and what remained was pure humanity, a man confronting his memories, his regrets, his joys, and his vulnerabilities all at once. That single tear carried decades of experience, a life lived in music, in triumph, in loss, and in reflection that he recounted the first time he realized the profound responsibility of being a musician. The stage was not just a place of performance, but a conduit for emotion, a channel through which he could connect with countless strangers who felt the music as deeply as he did. He spoke about the paradox of visibility, being seen by millions, yet so often feeling unseen in the moments that truly matter. Family, personal dreams, quiet victories, and private struggles, these were the parts of life that fame could not illuminate. That was the moment the question touched. It bypassed fame entirely and connected with the human heart underneath. Michael's reflection expanded into the theme of memory and loss. He spoke of friends and mentors who had passed away, of colleagues who had changed or drifted apart, and of the relentless passage of time that turns fleeting moments into permanent echoes. He admitted that some memories brought laughter, some brought warmth, and some brought a pang of sorrow so sharp it could catch him off guard, even decades later. The tears that appeared on camera were not an isolated reaction. They were the culmination of a lifetime of such memories pressing quietly on his heart until a single question opened the floodgates that he also explored the emotional balance of public life and private pain. Being a music icon is often glamorous on the outside, but the reality behind the scenes can be isolating. Endless tours, constant expectations, and the pressure to remain perfect in the public eye leave little space for reflection or emotional processing. Michael admitted that sometimes he had to compartmentalize his feelings, pushing aside grief, longing, or doubt to maintain performance that fans expected. The question pierced through this compartmentalization, revealing a man who had always carried these emotions quietly, patiently, and with dignity. There was also a moment of gratitude in his reflection. He acknowledged the fans, the collaborators, and the life experiences that had shaped him. The tears, while emotional, were also a tribute to the depth of his journey. He celebrated the moments of joy, the friendships that endured, the music that brought meaning to his life and the lives of others. He reminded viewers that life is complex. It is a mixture of joy and sadness, success and struggle, laughter and tears, all woven together into a tapestry that defines who we are. Michael then spoke about resilience and the lessons learned from vulnerability. He emphasized that allowing oneself to feel, even in public, is an act of strength. He reflected on the importance of embracing emotions rather than suppressing them. Fame often teaches restraint, but he learned that authenticity, even when it leads to visible tears, fosters connection, empathy, and understanding. By sharing this raw emotional moment, he had given the world not just a glimpse of his humanity, but also a lesson in courage, that it is okay to be deeply, visibly, undeniably human, that he also considered the impact of this moment on others. Fans who witnessed his vulnerability expressed admiration, empathy, and solidarity. Many shared that seeing someone they idolized display such raw honesty allowed them to reflect on their own emotions, to accept their own vulnerabilities, and to recognize